When I was younger, I would go window shopping with my mom and sister because the only thing we could afford to do was leave. So instead, we would shop at places like Walmart, Ross, Burlington, and maybe Marshall's if we were feeling fancy. Because we were low income, I would wear these clothes until they would literally fall apart. Despite its cheap price, some of these clothes would last me for years, while only a few of these items, mainly from Walmart, would last me a shorter amount of time. But still, the quality was pretty darn good for its price. However, now at my big ol' age, I can relatively afford to purchase my own clothing than I did back then. So, as an adult, going into retail stores at the mall like Gap, Abercrombie and Fitch, or even J.C. Penney's, I'm surprised to see the prices of these clothing, and even more surprised whenever I see snags, uneven hems, or loose threads hanging from the fabric. As an adult, I'm shocked because growing up, my family couldn't afford to shop at these highly regarded stores. Back then, everyone and their mother was fascinated with the clothing and its appeal. So to witness what I've been missing out on this whole time was a letdown. However, I've noticed some discourse online discussing that it wasn't always like this. Clothing just isn't what it used to be. Even prestigious brands that were highly regarded back then seem to be declining in quality. So that beckons the question, why do clothes suck now? Luxury brands are notoriously expensive for the average person, but the cost does not always translate in its quality. At this point, consumers are paying for the name rather than its ability to withstand the test of time. Personally, if I'm investing in a $4,000 bag, it needs to be handcrafted by God Himself, because there's just no way I can justify spending that kind of money in any financial position. People assume that they are getting more bang for their buck if they purchase more for quality. But is that still the case? According to Good On You, 111 of 174 luxury brands surveyed did not pay living wages throughout their supply chain. Many luxury brands have even been linked to engaging in practices that harm animals, sweatshops, or exploitative wages. This is obviously not exclusive to luxury brands, but it also extends to brands like H&M, Gap, Anthropologie, Nike, Urban Outfitters, Boohoo, ASOS, Topshop. This is a very long list. Again, not luxury brands, but seemingly harmless, well-regarded brands that are in actuality unethical and unsustainable. Now, I haven't forgotten about Shein. After all, the brand is notorious for its problematic working conditions and bad quality, but it is inexpensive for consumers. Don't get me wrong, I am anti-fast fashion. But if you're someone who is low income, living paycheck to paycheck, or struggling to make ends meet, it's completely rational to choose the cheapest option available to you. Especially when a lot of these brands are no less ethical than Shein. To help put things into perspective, Kim Kardashian's Skims scored a 0 out of 150 for fashion accountability. This not only tied with fast fashion companies Temu, Fashion Nova, and Missguided, but it scored lower than Shein. This is not intended to minimize the negative impact that Shein has had on fashion, but rather to highlight that Shein is not the only problem. We need to hold all brands and even influencers accountable. There are alternatives, of course, but they don't come without their shortcomings. With thrifting in person, finding something you like in your size can be a hassle, especially if you're plus size. I don't usually find anything I like in person, so I personally thrift online with apps like Poshmark and Depop, but even then, there are downsides, such as not finding something you like in your size, inactive user listings, or seeing an item you like but it really isn't available, dishonest sellers. Also, it's not as affordable as it used to be in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I find really good deals on there sometimes, but it can take quite some time before I can secure something that I like in my price range. On the other hand, those who are willing to pay more for better quality may still find themselves on the short end of the stick because brands are cutting corners with the production of clothing. Companies are willing to sacrifice quality to keep up with the demands of trends, so they resort to the cheapest and fastest way to do so, which results in poor quality. If I'm buying something that's overpriced, it better be sustainable, ethically made, and last me for a reasonable amount of time. I shouldn't see a luxury bag peeling after a few weeks or buttons falling off a t-shirt when I walk in a store, or thin material clothing if you're a big brand name charging me premium prices. There are successful brands that rely on their status to maintain its desirability rather than investing in ethical practices to improve margins. But with the cost of living, consumers have to resort to cheap and affordable options. No one can afford a $50 blank t-shirt in this economy. Purchasing clothing is such a gamble now, and you really can't win. Even when I purchase fabric from Hobby Lobby, the quality doesn't feel the best. Apparently someone said Joann's fabric was the same and that everything there is polyester. I don't know how true this is because I've never shopped there before, but it still is apparent that this is an issue. Not just in the textile and apparel industry, but in all industries across the board. If people are willing to buy something at a premium price, even if it's under the illusion they'll get more out of what they pay for, companies will continue to charge those prices, even if that means sacrificing durability and longevity, which we as consumers deserve better. I only touched the tip of the iceberg of this conversation for the sake of time, but there's so much more to discuss with this important topic that I didn't get to cover. Maybe you disagreed with some of the things I've talked about, or perhaps I forgot to mention some things in the video. Let me know and share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. With that being said, thank you for watching till the end. Goodbye.